now the introduction. I'm very happy to have Steve Kaplan here, world famous teacher for comedy writing. Thank you, Steve, that you come from my improvised studio here in Chicago, where I attend your teachings about comedy writing. Welcome.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
I want to ask you some questions about that stuff.
Great.
First of all, is there a special hero's journey in comedy?
Yeah, I think so. There's what we would call it is the non-hero. In comedy, what you have is you have a protagonist, a character who, as opposed to Chris Vogler's hero journey, where somebody goes on a journey to do a hero's quest, what you have is a character that is lacking something. In Groundhog Day, say, Bill Murray is lacking sensitivity. He's not a nice guy. He's kind of a jerk. In some comedies, you have characters who lack self-confidence. For instance, in While You Were Sleeping, Sandra Bullock is kind of a little mouse of a woman. And in a comic feature, the hero goes on a journey and they learn to get what they're lacking. So, for instance, Bill Murray becomes a better person because he's stuck in this time warp in Groundhog Day. And Sandra Bullock in While You Were Sleeping becomes more self-assertive, and she learns how to be more of herself and like herself.
But isn't it the same in normal drama? When I see Jaws, the hero has also a lack of skills.
Well, usually, like in Jaws, you have three characters who are heroes. You have the Richard Dreyfuss, the Roy Scheider, and the Robert Shaw. But all of them have skills, but what they're doing is they're applying their skills together to beat an outside obstacle, the dragon, say. Yeah. In comedy, you have an outside catalyst, but the catalyst is there mostly to serve as the catalyst to help an inner journey.
Does one need a special gene to write excellent comedies?
You know, that's the I guess that's the general view, that you have to be born funny. Although I've never seen a funny birth, never heard of a funny birth. I've never heard of a baby being born, being slapped on the butt, turning to the doctor and saying, you know, a funny thing happened to me on the way through the fallopian tubes. That doesn't happen. I think that comedy is done by outsiders for insiders. A comedian is somebody who, whether they are outside of a group because of race or culture, or outside of a group just because they're just a little odd, and what you do is you develop a different way of seeing things than the way everybody else sees them. So I'm not sure if that's a gene. I do think it's a way of coping with being different, and it's a way of expressing that difference and trying to negotiate that difference. Comedy was a way for a lot of people to deal with the dysfunction that they saw and to try to make sense of it. If you're an insider in an inside group, you don't see the dysfunction as much. You accept the things that you have, and you see things as basically they're the way they should be. But if you're outside the group, you're aware. You develop an ironic point of view. You see both the way things should be and the way things are, and you either express that through comedy or you throw a rock at somebody. So most comedians are bad fighters, so they decide to make fun of something.
Then what's the main qualification comedy writers have to bring with? Is it this special point of view, or is it some more?
Well, I think a specific special point of view is a good start, and then I think they have to have a love of language, because it's also about shaping dialogue. How do you express something? What's the best way to express it? What's a way that expresses it that creates the biggest, the most ironic point of view in it, and add to that a deep understanding and appreciation for human behavior.
Can you give us a proven magic recipe to write stunning comedy scripts?
Well, a proven recipe. I would say that you're writing about ordinary people struggling against unordinary circumstances, extraordinary circumstances, without many of the required skills and tools with which to win, yet never giving up hope. I think if there's one idea that I think typifies good comedy, it's the idea that somebody very much like you and me are put in some extraordinary circumstance or out of the ordinary circumstance, and even though we don't have the skills and the fortitude of a classic hero or heroine, we bumble along trying to do our best without giving up hope.
Ask the other way around. What is the main mistake newbies and others should avoid?
I think the main mistake is trying to be too funny, trying to think that comedy is about everybody saying a funny thing all the time. That the most important thing aren't the jokes, aren't the gags. The most important thing are the characters. The characters have to be true, they have to be human. And by human, I mean they are flawed, they are failed, they are crazy. Think about your family. Think about the people closest to you. You know they're nuts, and you love them anyway. You know you're nuts, and you hope that people love you for who you are. So you just take characters and let them try to find their own way in your scenario. Put them in a situation and follow them. See what they do as they try to get out of the situation or try to make the situation as best as possible for themselves.
What is it what we can learn from classical playwriters like Shakespeare?
Well, one of the things we can learn from Shakespeare is that he stole all his plots. So my feeling is that the way comedy used to be taught and the way comedy used to be learned is people used to become members of a commedia troupe, and then later people did the music hall or did vaudeville or did in Europe did cabaret. And when they did that, they started out and they learned from the people who had been doing it for years before, and we've lost that a little bit. We've lost the sense that you are going to do some terrible act in vaudeville, but you are going to do it on a bill with somebody who's good, and you'd steal something from them, and you'd borrow something from this act, and you'd take something from that act, and eventually you'd find your own act and find your own voice.